Have you ever had someone publicly humiliate you in front of your entire team, and then expect you to just smile and take it? Well, I did exactly that. But what happened next? That's where this story gets interesting. My name is Rebecca Chen, and until 3 months ago, I was the regional marketing director at Pinnacle Dynamics, a Fortune 500 consulting firm in downtown Chicago. I'd clawed my way up from an entry-level coordinator to managing a team of 23 people across 4 states. 7 years of 60-hour weeks, missed family dinners, and sacrificing personal relationships for the promise of that corner office. The November wind whipped through the glass corridors of our 32nd floor as I prepared for what I thought would be just another quarterly board presentation. The conference room smelled of fresh coffee and expensive cologne, the usual cocktail of corporate ambition. Outside, Lake Michigan churned gray and restless, matching the knot in my stomach. I'd spent weeks perfecting our Q4 strategy presentation. My team had delivered exceptional results: a 28% increase in client retention, 3 major contract renewals, and the successful launch of our digital transformation initiative that saved the company over $2 million. The numbers were solid. The strategy was bulletproof. Marcus Wellington, our CEO, strode into the room wearing his signature navy suit and that smile that never quite reached his eyes. At 55, he commanded respect through sheer presence. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of confidence that came from never having to prove himself to anyone. Behind him followed the usual parade of senior executives, all men, all cut from the same privileged cloth. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced, settling into his leather chair at the head of the mahogany table. "Today we're discussing the future direction of our marketing initiatives." I straightened my blazer and opened my laptop. This was my moment. The presentation that would finally secure my promotion to vice president, a position I'd been promised for over a year. "Rebecca," Marcus said, his voice carrying that particular tone executives use when they're about to deliver news you won't like. "Before we begin, I want to introduce someone special." The door opened, and in walked David Hartman. Tall, probably mid-40s, with perfectly styled brown hair and a handshake that lingered just a second too long. His LinkedIn profile, which I'd frantically Googled on my phone, showed an MBA from Wharton and a string of marketing positions at mid-tier firms. "Everyone, meet David, our new VP of Strategic Marketing," Marcus continued, and I felt the blood drain from my face. "He'll be taking the lead on our expansion into the West Coast markets." The position I was promised. The position I'd been preparing for. The position that was supposed to be mine. David smiled that practiced corporate smile and launched into a brief introduction about his vision for revolutionary marketing strategies and paradigm shifts in client engagement. Buzzwords wrapped in expensive packaging. But it was what happened next that changed everything. "Now, Rebecca," Marcus said, turning to me with that patronizing smile. "I know you've prepared a presentation, but given our new organizational structure, I think it would be more appropriate for David to present the strategic overview while you handle the operational details. After all," he paused, looking around the room at the nodding faces of my colleagues, "we need someone with fresh eyes to lead this initiative. Rebecca, you've done excellent operational work, but leadership, well, that requires a different skill set." The room fell silent, except for the distant hum of the city below. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd react. David shifted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly not expecting to be thrown into this awkward dynamic on his first day. And then Marcus delivered the line that would echo in my head for weeks. "Let her listen, not lead." The words hit me like a physical blow. In that moment, 7 years of dedication, countless late nights, and every sacrifice I'd made suddenly felt worthless. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Around the conference table, I watched as my colleagues, people I'd mentored, collaborated with, fought alongside for budget approvals and project deadlines, avoided my gaze. Some studied their phones, suddenly finding urgent emails that needed immediate attention. Others developed fascinating interests in their coffee cups. Tom Richardson, the CFO who'd personally congratulated me on our cost-saving initiatives just last month, cleared his throat and said, "That sounds like a solid plan, Marcus. Fresh perspective is always valuable." Fresh perspective. As if my 7 years of institutional knowledge, my relationships with every major client, my understanding of our market dynamics, as if none of that mattered. David, to his credit, looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Actually, I think Rebecca should present first," he said carefully. "She knows the current landscape better than anyone." But Marcus waved him off with the casual dismissiveness of someone accustomed to having his decisions followed without question. "Nonsense. You're the VP now, David. Leadership starts today. Rebecca, you can provide supporting data when needed." I felt my hands trembling slightly as I closed my laptop. The presentation I'd rehearsed dozens of times, the strategic vision I'd crafted for our future growth, the innovative campaigns my team had developed, all of it reduced to supporting data. The meeting proceeded with David stumbling through high-level concepts while I sat there, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. He talked about synergistic opportunities and leveraging core competencies, MBA speak that sounded impressive, but said nothing concrete. When he couldn't answer specific questions about client histories or campaign performance, all eyes turned to me. "Rebecca, what were our conversion rates on the Johnson account?" David would ask, passing the detailed work to me while maintaining his position at the head of the table. I answered professionally, providing the data with the precision that had made me indispensable. But inside I was calculating the years I'd given this company, calculating the promises that had been broken, calculating the respect I'd lost in front of my own team. Jennifer Walsh, one of my senior marketing managers, caught my eye across the table. Her expression said everything. "This isn't right. This isn't fair. But what can we do?" The presentation ended with polite applause for David's strategic vision, a vision that was essentially my quarterly plan, repackaged with different vocabulary. Marcus beamed as if he'd just witnessed a masterpiece of corporate leadership. "Excellent work, David. This is exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach we need." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Rebecca, thank you for the operational support." Operational support. I'd just watched someone else get credit for my work, my strategy, my team's achievements, and I was being thanked for operational support. As the room began to empty, Marcus approached me with that same patronizing smile. "Rebecca, I hope you understand this decision. You're incredibly valuable to this organization, but sometimes we need to step back and let others take the helm. Your contributions are appreciated, but leadership, well, it's about more than just doing good work." I forced myself to nod, to maintain the professional composure that had served me well for 7 years. "Of course, Marcus, I understand completely, but I didn't understand. What I understood was that no amount of excellence, dedication, or results would ever be enough. What I understood was that in this room, on this day, I'd been publicly diminished, and there wasn't a single person willing to defend me. That night, staring at the Chicago skyline from my apartment window, I made a decision that would change everything. Sometimes the most important decisions happen in the quiet moments, when you're alone with your thoughts, and the weight of reality finally settles in. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, staring at my laptop screen. The cursor blinked mockingly in the empty document I'd opened, waiting for words I wasn't sure I was brave enough to write. Outside my Lincoln Park apartment, the city hummed with its usual restless energy. Even at 2 a.m, Chicago never truly sleeps. Delivery trucks rumbling down streets, the distant wail of sirens, the occasional burst of laughter from late-night revelers. But inside my apartment, everything felt still, suspended. I thought about calling my sister Maya in San Francisco. But what would I say? That after 7 years of assuring her I was building something meaningful, I'd been publicly humiliated and demoted in front of my entire team. That all my talk about breaking glass ceilings had ended with me sitting silently while someone else took credit for my work? Instead, I opened my email and began scrolling through messages from my team. Jennifer had sent a carefully worded note. "Great data presentation today. Your insights were invaluable as always." Translation: That was completely unfair, but I can't say it directly. Mark Rivera from our digital team had sent a more direct message. "Hey Rebecca, just wanted to say that presentation was based on your strategy from start to finish. We all know whose work that really was. At least someone was willing to acknowledge the truth." I pulled up David's presentation slides, which had somehow already been uploaded to our shared drive. Slide by slide, I recognized my work. The market analysis I'd conducted over 3 months, the client segmentation strategy my team had developed, the innovative digital approach that had taken weeks of testing and refinement, all of it repackaged under David's name with slightly different fonts and color schemes. The rage I'd been suppressing in that conference room finally surfaced. Not the explosive kind that makes you say things you regret, but the cold, calculating anger that clarifies everything. I'd been playing by rules that were designed for me to lose. I'd been waiting for recognition that would never come. I'd been hoping for fairness in a system that had already decided my worth. It was time to stop hoping and start acting. By dawn, I'd drafted my resignation letter. Not the emotional, accusatory kind that burns bridges, but the professional, strategic kind that leaves people asking questions. I scheduled it to send at exactly 9 a.m., right after our weekly team meeting where I knew Marcus would be praising David's leadership again. But first, I had one more thing to do. I opened a new document and began typing. If I was going to leave, I was going to make sure the truth was documented. Not just for my own peace of mind, but for every other woman who might find herself in that conference room someday, watching her work get handed to someone else while being told to smile and be grateful for the opportunity to support. The email was addressed to the entire marketing department, with copies to HR and the executive team. In it, I detailed the origins of every strategy in David's presentation, provided timestamps of my meetings and research, and attached original drafts of the work that had been repackaged. I didn't make accusations or emotional appeals. I simply presented facts, with the same precision I'd brought to every project for the past 7 years. Facts have a way of speaking for themselves when you let them. At 8:30, I sent the documentation email. At 9 a.m., my resignation would follow. By 9:15, I'd be walking out of Pinnacle Dynamics for the last time, but on my own terms. As I got dressed for my final day, I chose my favorite blazer, the red one Maya had bought me for my promotion to regional director. Power Red, she'd called it, for when you need to remind the room who you are. Today, I was going to remind them exactly who they were losing. Walking into that office for the last time felt different. Every step was lighter, every breath easier. When you've finally decided to stop playing a rigged game, there's a freedom in that choice that nothing can touch. The marketing department buzzed with its usual Monday morning energy, but I could sense the undercurrent of tension. Word travels fast in corporate environments, and by the time I reached my office, several people had already read my documentation email. Jennifer knocked on my doorframe, holding a cup of coffee like a peace offering. "Rebecca, can we talk?" "Of course." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same spot where we'd brainstormed countless campaigns and celebrated project victories. "That email this morning," she started, then stopped. "Is it true? Are you really leaving?" I nodded, watching her face process the implications. Jennifer was brilliant, ambitious, and exactly the kind of person who should be getting opportunities to lead. "My resignation goes live at 9, but first, I want you to know something important." I pulled out a folder I'd prepared the night before. Inside were recommendation letters for every member of my team, detailed project handoffs, and contact information for all our key clients. "You're ready for more responsibility, Jen. Don't let them convince you otherwise." At 8:55, I walked into the conference room where our team meeting was about to begin. David sat at the head of the table, my usual spot, looking more confident than he had the previous day. Marcus entered with his typical commanding presence, already launching into praise for the innovative strategic direction David had presented. "As you all know," Marcus said, "David's presentation yesterday showed exactly the kind of visionary thinking we need to stay competitive. I'm excited to see how his leadership transforms our approach to market expansion." 3 minutes until my resignation email sent. 2 minutes. 1. My phone buzzed with a notification. Then another. Then Jennifer's eyes widened as she checked her email. Around the table, I watched faces change as people opened their phones and laptops. Marcus was still talking about fresh perspectives and new energy when his own phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowning. Then his expression shifted completely as he read my resignation letter. "Rebecca," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled frustration. "I think we need to talk privately." I stood up, smoothing my red blazer. Actually, Marcus, I think we've said everything we need to say. My resignation is effective immediately. The room fell silent. David looked confused, clearly not understanding the sudden shift in atmosphere. My team members sat frozen, caught between shock and what I could only describe as admiration. "You can't just leave like this," Marcus said, his polished composure finally cracking. "We have projects, deadlines, responsibilities, all of which are thoroughly documented in my handoff notes." I interrupted calmly. "Everything you need is in the shared drive, including detailed explanations of the strategies and campaigns that were, how did you put it, operationally supported by me." I gathered my personal items from the conference table. My notebook, my favorite pen, the small potted succulent Maya had given me for my office. "I want to thank everyone for 7 wonderful years. You're an incredible team, and I have no doubt you'll continue to excel." As I walked toward the door, Jennifer stood up. "Rebecca, wait." I turned back, and she did something unexpected. She started clapping, slowly, deliberately, like she was applauding a performance she'd been waiting years to see. Then Mark joined her. Then Lisa from Content Strategy. Then James from Analytics. One by one, my entire team rose to their feet and applauded. Not politely, not professionally, but with genuine enthusiasm. They were applauding the moment someone finally said enough. Marcus's face reddened with embarrassment and anger. David looked like he wanted to disappear entirely, but my team kept clapping, and I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every time they'd watched good work go unrecognized, every time they'd seen politics trump performance, every time they'd wondered if excellence would ever be enough. I smiled, feeling tears I hadn't expected sting my eyes. Thank you, all of you. Keep doing amazing work. 3 months later, I'm writing this from my new office in Denver, where I'm the chief marketing officer at a rapidly growing tech startup that values innovation over politics. My team here is small but brilliant, and when I present strategies, I present them myself. Sometimes you have to walk away from what's comfortable to find what's right. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is know your worth and refuse to accept anything less. Marcus never called. David lasted 6 weeks before quietly transitioning to a consulting role. And Jennifer, she got promoted to regional director last month. The applause still echoes, but the best part? I'm finally the one leading it.